about 50 minutes together before, we release you to like travel elsewhere. So we'll dive into it. And then as you guys kind of have questions, we'll create some space for questions there toward the end. So I'll make sure that I flip through this stuff quickly so that you can dive in. What we're going to be talking about is how you can leverage social media in the pulpit. What I like to call moving beyond selfies to salvations. I'm in the South. It played well. Don't think too theologically into it. Just a reminder. This is why. This is our digital pulpit we talked about. And so where you're going to see impact opportunities on each spectrum of that. We're going to talk about your social media stuff can hit the outside audience. It can also be used during your live audience to expand out and leverage a little bit. And then also you can actually develop things that will help your people engage the back channel with some of the things that are impacting them. One of the things that really stuck out to me in the importance of social media in the church is this story. This is Lacey. Lacey had not been to church in about 16 years, I apologize. And she hit a point in her life where she was at such a low point, so desperate for God that she was willing to try anything. So she Googled casual church. Our church popped up top, and the thing that popped up top was our website. She skipped the website, and she went straight to our Facebook page. Because what Lacey knows is what all your people know, which is social media is a razor knife look into the heart of your church. Not just what you say, but who you actually are. And so she's thinking casual church. She flips it up, and it just so happened to be the same weekend we were doing our first tattoo convention. So we had these really fun shirts right here. Jesus loves me, my tattoos. Very comfortable shirt. And we went out to a tattoo convention that was a little hesitant. The church was coming out to sell the t-shirts, give away free koozies, and just engage with people with the gospel. And when she saw that, she said to herself, well, I think that's fairly casual. And so she came out. She comes out all the time, got reconnected to the church. I'm hoping we'll get to baptize her at some point soon. But the reality is she was looking on the Facebook page because that was her window into us as an organization. And we were leveraging that page to not only connect with people, but to give people a picture of what the church actually looks like. And so that's why we're talking about this. So here was my promise to you, kind of in the keynote, is this. I know we're across the spectrum. Some of us, we're swimming in the shallow end when it comes to social media. Some of us are in the deep end of the pool. So with that in mind, I'm breaking this into 3 sections. The basics. So maybe you have an account, maybe you don't have an account. We're going to talk about how to navigate the basics where your church has 0 account, into what you do when you have the account, into you have the account, you're very social media savvy. How can you really leverage that with some deeper? And then I'm also going to give you guys a great resource to dive deeper on your own, because the reality is this. Justin Wise, who's a kind of a social media, he's a real social media guru, not just iPhone and Facebook account. He says the reality of social media is this. The networks will change, but social media is here to stay. So we're going to talk through some of these things that we're talking through are very value-based. I'm going to use some examples from platforms, but keep in mind the why behind what we're doing, because that's the value that will translate beyond platform into all areas of social media. And so the big question is, where do we begin? And the question you need to ask yourself in a pool of social media is this. Where are the people we want to reach? Okay? It's a simple question. It's kind of a business question, what's your hard target? But it's an important question for social media because each platform is different. Each platform engages a different segment of people. So for example, Facebook is the #1 platform in the world, and it's probably a great platform if you have 0 social media to start with because so many people are on it. But if you're doing youth ministry, engaging younger generations, you're going to want to move off Facebook and onto Instagram and Snapchat because that's where your people are that you're trying to engage. And a good thing about doing that is your church will then be prepared when that segment becomes the majority of the church. You've already got the platforms in place. The people, even my grandmother-in-law's age, are engaging with Facebook. So how do you find out what platform you really need to focus your time and attention on? This is going to blow your mind. Ask them. Ask your people what platform they're on. I know what you're thinking. We don't have sophisticated survey methods, so stand up in front of your church during the greet time and say this. Who has a Facebook account? Raise your hand. Go ahead. We're going to do a little example here. Here's a Facebook account. All right. Who has a Twitter account? Who has an Instagram account? Who has a YouTube account? Okay, so from our quick poll, I know that we as a congregation need to leverage our time and energy in Facebook first. And any platform that's going to help us leverage Facebook, because just about everybody in the room had a Facebook account. That's how quick and easy it is to figure out where you need to begin. So what you're going to do is you're then going to create an account. You'll want to create an account for your church, okay, your church as a whole. And when you're creating an account for your church, there are so many varied platforms, and there's so many opportunities for people to connect. The thing you're going to want to think of first is, what should we name the account? The thing you want to do is you want to pick a name that you can use for everything. And the reason you want to do that, and you always want to use that name for everything, if you're thinking you'll engage a platform in the future, get the account now, because they're free and they're easy to grab a hold of. So grab a hold of every account with the same name, because you don't want people to think about where to find you on the varied platforms. So our web URL is the Point Knox. And so you know, if you go on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Vimeo, Pinterest even. I don't do anything with the Pinterest page. Other people do. In our app store, if you type in the Point Knox, you will come across our church. You don't have to think about where to find us. You just have to type it into the search. It's worth it if you have an existing URL to change that URL to be closer to that, because then also from a marketing standpoint, when you're handing out invite cards for your church, you just put thepointknox.com and you add the logo of the social media network you're on. And all of a sudden, you've given people 3 options to connect in what amounts to just a little line. You noticed we did that in the book that we handed out. So, why is it important to kind of understand the different platforms? Because all the different platforms have different protocols. This is a funny way to think about it. Social media and coffee, right? I love this image because it's just hilarious. So like Facebook, it's I like coffee. Okay, Twitter, I'm drinking a hashtag coffee. LinkedIn, I'm good at drinking coffee, right? That's a businessing network. YouTube, watch me as I drink coffee. MySpace, I'm 13 and I drink coffee. I'm not taking pictures of myself when I'm not taking pictures. But Pinterest, here's a collection of pictures of coffee. So you start to get the idea, and then I love Instagram there at the end. Here's a vintage picture of me drinking coffee. See, each platform, it follows different rules, it hits different segments, it's got kind of its own different code of doing things. But as we move beyond the basics, we're going to talk about not mattering what platform you're on, but the values you can engage with that'll allow you on any platform to be able to engage. And so here's where we kind of swim out of the shallow end. So if you're there and that's where you need to stop, feel free to just, start a social media account while you're listening to the rest. We'll record it and you can rewind it and then do step 2 when you hit step 2. But here's how you move beyond the basics. Here's what you need to know about social media. Social media is about building real relationships with real people. And we don't think about that often. But they've done studies at universities where professors that tweet with their students are more likely to engage outside of the classroom in meaningful conversation than those that don't. You'll notice this with your parishioners. For us, an example of this is I met a woman that came out to our church. I always ask the question, how'd you hear about the Point? She said the radio, and then she said she'd been listening to our messages for a month before coming out. Because people also want to be able to experience your church before they come out. But because she'd been listening to a message for a month, she already felt like we had some level of a relationship. And she was more willing to connect because she felt familiar with me through that platform. So that's a real advantage. So how is it we leverage that kind of social connection? There are 4 C's of social media, because 4 C's are easier to remember. You have first, connection. That's the first thing you're going to do. That's the most important thing you're going to do. Connection is going to move to conversation. We're really going to camp out there a little bit because it's vital to understand conversation, or else you're not going to see impact on social media. Conversation will lead to collaboration. Collaboration will lead to community, which will then lead you to more connections. And so it all begins with connection, which it's like we talked about, starting the page. But as you start the page or the venue in mind with connection at the center point. So for us, we're going to use Facebook as an example because, like I said, we have to start a Facebook page for our mini church right here because that's what you all are on. Some things we use to be able to connect well. In social media, the profile picture you have is kind of like your brand image. You'll even notice this with people that are personal brands, like Guy Kawasaki. Any social media you step on, he always has the same profile picture because that's his brand image himself. For our church, what we did was we did the point symbol right there. That's kind of our brand. And so in the profile image, there's always some kind of point symbol so people know and identify that they're in the right spot. A lot of social media have cover pages. Cover pages are an incredible opportunity to promote who you are, to give either a welcoming message, for in this example, which is something up there. Yeah, we saved a seat for you. I forgot the 4. This is a while ago. I corrected that, don't worry. This was a chance for us to say, hey, you're welcome here. And then underneath are our taglines. Come as you are, text in your questions. The 2 promises will make people before they come to church. A couple important things are photos, images, video. Whenever you're using that kind of stuff, this is an opportunity for you all to show who you are as a church. So when you're out doing events, everybody has a phone. Most of those phones have cameras. Have them taking pictures and pool some of those pictures together and build a photo album so that people can experience the event with you. Whenever we go out to an event in the community, it seems self-centered, but we're actually taking a lot of pictures because, one, we want our people to be encouraged that this is where you need to be as a church. Look, Pastor was at Brewfest. He's talking to people that don't go to our church. Maybe we should be doing that too. You're the example there. People outside your church are going, oh man, they just held a 5K to raise money for Food for Kids. They really care about our community. So it's a chance for people to see who we really are. And remember, keep authenticity in mind. Social media is the quickest way to discover somebody that's being inauthentic. So make sure everything you do is authentic. Be who you are, because the reason you're that way is God created you that way to reach someone. The like button, this is huge. On any of your social media, anytime somebody likes your social media, follows you depending on the platform, take the opportunity, if the platform enables you to message them. When it comes to social media, I suggest messaging them personally. This is not going to be a huge time drain for you. It really is a quick and efficient way to begin connecting with people. And then what I always tell our connection team is this: you make the first reach out. After that, you're off the hook. So if I reach out with a message or I reach out with a text and somebody doesn't reply, I'm off the hook. Because otherwise what it's going to seem like is when you come up to me in person and I want to have a conversation and you're ready to leave, so you leave, and I keep following you. And so you walk a little faster and I walk a little faster. That's kind of what you're doing social media-wise when you keep, blowing people up. Instead of just saying, hey, I'm so glad you liked our page. Open-ended question. If you have questions, how'd you hear about our page? Feel free to connect with me. And then they'll connect with you through the social media platform. This is where you start to leverage that connection in really, liking and engaging with people. Then we move on to the most important piece, conversation piece. Social media, depending on the platform, has a lot of different ways in which you can have a conversation. Facebook up here, there are comments. Comments are the conversation that's happening with the post. Engage with the comments that people make on your page, positive and negative. What we used to think was that if somebody made a negative comment, delete it because it's bad for you, but it's worse for you to delete it because then people think you're hiding something. Versus it's an opportunity to engage. Even the negative feedback with the guy we had to kick off our Facebook page was a positive opportunity for our church to learn how our pastoral team engages negative feedback and engages people that don't agree with us or don't like what we're doing. And oftentimes it can actually be a way to build a stronger relationship through it. So comments are one way, likes are one way people engage with you. On things like Twitter and Instagram, you've got the hashtag. Facebook has the hashtag. People don't use it as much on Facebook for the trending. A hashtag is basically like a topic. So we have Day of Hom 2015, and you're creating a category topic that people can follow if they search it in Instagram, Twitter, or even Facebook. They can follow that topic, see the things that people are posting, talking about, but it's a way to build conversation, not just with your people, but people outside your church. So you can look at topics that are trending in your community. One of our vicars, our first vicar, Andy, this is how he used to find out what was going on in Knoxville. He would jump on Twitter, and he would find out what events were happening by seeing what was trending on Twitter in our area, and enabled him to go out and be a part of those events and kind of be a little bit in the know. This is why CNN and a lot of those places are showing Twitter feeds and saying, hey, here's what we're seeing on Twitter. And you're like, Twitter? Really? That's where we're getting the news? Yes, it is. It is scary. You can be scared. And the other thing is, this is Jake Allstat. He's Seattle area. If you get a chance, follow him on Twitter or on Instagram. He does an incredible job of just being fun and conversational and discipleship-oriented with the way that he posts on Instagram. But it's an opportunity to engage. So you'll see comments, and you'll see Jake reply to comments. So he's having a conversation with people, even though they're not in the room. Here's the reason a conversation is so important. Okay, if you are promotional on social media, it will lead to death. Not real physical death, but what you'd call like social media post-death. Here's how social media determines what will stay up and for how long. It's the amount of engagement. So the number of likes, the number of comments, and the number of shares, depending on what platform you are, will increase the amount of time that something stays up in front of people. Because social media is basically saying through different algorithms, this must be really interesting to people because they're engaging with it. And they want things that people want to engage with because they want people to stay on their platforms. Now, when you're really promotional, I want you to think of like a party, okay? We're at a party together. Have you ever been to a party where you walk up and there's the person in the room that all they do is talk about themselves? You know? And you're sitting there, you're having that conversation, and not only are they talking about themselves, but every story you have, they have a story that's that much better than your story. What are you trying to do in that moment? Escape. Any way possible, as far and as fast as possible. When we are promotional with our posting, promotional about events and things like that, people try to escape. They say, I don't care that you're speaking at 10:30 in the morning at Concordia, no like there. People want to be conversational because social media is meant to be social. So people want you to be conversational. So it doesn't mean you can't promote the things you're doing or the things that your church is doing. It means you have to do it in the context of a conversation. And so what this looks like is kind of an ebb and flow. So the ebb and flow would look like this. On our Facebook page, we post once a day. Every social media has an appropriate rhythm that you can post with. Facebook is roughly once a day. Twitter, Instagram, you can post a lot because the feeds are kind of continuous. So you could be posting 5-6 times a day and you'll be okay. And you can build those out. We'll talk about that to where you're not always sitting there on your phone. Know the rhythm. And then when you post, know the best way to post. So like with a picture, images always go farther on social media. And then post in like a conversational way. And so something our team does is this. When we're not doing something big or something we want to engage with, they make sure that one Facebook post a day is just something conversational. It's entertaining, it's fun, it maybe helps you think or just kind of lifts your spirits. And they're building all this groundwork so that people engage with our page. So that when we have something really important we want to say or we want to share, all of a sudden people follow us and engage with us. And then what we put out, people are listening to. It's promotional, but it's still conversational. And it's for a short season. It's kind of like farming. Sometimes you harvest, but a lot of the time is spent just kind of prepping the field, basically. And so that's what our team does. And you may be saying, well, we're not a rich church. We don't have, resources for a social media team. I was a church plant. We don't either. Here's the quickest way to build a social media team, right? You know what platform you're on. Everybody raised their hand. A lot of people found out, throw this out to your people, oh, your pastor's on social media. So all of a sudden that week, you're going to start getting, some people that are liking you from your church. So accept those likes. Read through the feed. What are the posts from the people in your church that you enjoy reading the most? Who's fun? Who's witty? Really engaging? Those are your social media team. We took a stay-at-home mom, Meredith Devereaux. She is the funniest person I have ever in my life encountered. She's the person that on Facebook, she always has a different famous person in her profile picture because she doesn't want her picture up there. She has the wittiest quotes that always have a lot of engagement. And so I said to Meredith Devereaux, I need you to be on our social media team. And so I sat down, we met for coffee. I said, here's what our church is trying to do. I want you to build out posts in Hootsuite, it's a program, or on Facebook, where you can take basically a little amount of time and you can schedule out all your posts for a week. So for about 30 minutes to an hour at the beginning of the week, Meredith schedules out posts. She connects with me occasionally to find out what we have going on. She schedules a week worth of posts. Let me tell you, when Meredith started posting and Matt stopped posting, our engagement shot through the roof because she's just brilliant. And it's her way to serve. And it's in a rhythm she can do. So I'm not paying for this robust social media team. I'm just saying, who in our church has that gift? Can you do this for me by really showing them what the real impact can be for people's lives? People come up to me each week and they tell me, I just love what you guys post on Facebook. It just lifts my week. And then Meredith, because of how witty and fun and conversational she is, allows our likes to go up, which allows me to step in at points and say, okay, I really want to promote this new sermon series, or this Easter thing that we're doing, or this event that we'll be doing in person. And so I have the ability to promote those things in a conversational way because Meredith is doing the hard work of being conversational for us throughout the week. The other side benefit of people like Meredith is they're people that will stay in tune with your page. And then when the one thing that you need to engage with comes up, you will immediately know because they'll text you or they'll call you or they'll shoot you a message saying, hey, by the way, Pastor, look at the page. There's a question you need to respond to, versus always having to be on that page figuring that out yourself. So that's a great way to start doing kind of the conversation piece. We talked about this more in the last session, engage negative feedback. Here are some quick tips on how you could be conversational and a little bit promotional. This is our new tattoos t-shirt. I don't have a single tattoo, but that is the most comfortable t-shirt I own. And so I wear it, and I was just kind of being a little cheeky and kind of showing off the shirt. And so here's kind of a funny side idea that you could do. This wasn't a real post, but, you know, kind of, hey, it's showing the new shirt that we want people to know we have. And the post was just simply, you know, Pastor Matt is sporting our new Jesus Loves Me, my tattoo shirt. Does he even have a tattoo? That question forces people to engage. I don't know if he has a tattoo. Well, Pastor said he has a tattoo, but he's not allowed to show anybody. You know, like they can just throw all, you know, and it's more of a conversational way of saying, hey, check out our new t-shirt. So you can be promotional and really drive people to things, but be more conversational. And that conversation you're going to find is going to create moments where you can collaborate as a community. There are a lot of collaboration devices. This is the other real benefit to social media, is that you can collaborate together. I actually have a group of guys. We started with like 30 guys. Now we've got like 250 to 260, something like that. I don't know. Church planters. And the reason we started a private church plant page, which I'm not going to tell you the name because it's private, is so that guys could get off the island and they would have a place where they realized they weren't the only person church planting, and they could engage in real conversation with other planters about difficult issues they were facing in a safe environment where people wouldn't torpedo them with questions of theology, so they could just feel like they were off the island and just being able to work it out. That was a chance for collaboration and community. We do the same thing with our church and kind of the back and forth. Whenever we do events, we post events. I love this bar church event we did. First time we did the event, I'm connected with a lot of people in Knoxville, so I invited about 130 people to the event. The next morning, 13 hours later, 780 were invited to the bar church event, which is pretty incredible, which explained to me why 100 or so people showed up. Because people were saying, fun event, I want to share that event with my friends. So anytime you build events and things like that, do it in a way that you can make it public, meaning that people can share with their friend groups, because then that's where collaboration comes out. Because our people say, I would love to bring friends to bar church. So they share it out with all their friends, who are then like, oh, that's crazy, let's share it out with our friends. One time we did a wine tasting, and somebody showed up. This was early in our ministry, before we had so many kids. Now we do a few less alcohol events. But I said, how did you hear about the wine event? He goes, this person posted the event on their Facebook page. And I said, who's that person? Turns out they were friends with a couple other people we had connections with. So collaboration allows you to have extended impact. That collaboration then leads to community. And community is a powerful thing. The guy I'm standing next to there is my old neighbor, Chris. He actually just went into special forces to drive boats. So actually, before I came here, I got to say goodbye to him. But Chris, I found out, used to be a swimmer at UT, which was really cool because I used to be a swimmer. And so we started engaging on that. And he was my next door neighbor that we had had one conversation with, maybe like one of those hello, hey, how you doing conversations. But through social media, we were able to grow even deeper in our relationship so that we could engage. And that's us after a 2-mile swim. And I'd posted that picture up, and I found out Chris had tagged myself and him in it. So we had developed community through social media. And community that I found out Chris was actually connected to somebody that used to come out to our church and hadn't been for a long time, found out that we were mutual friends, and started coming back out to church. So it really has a lot of opportunities for impacts. Hashtags, things like that, are also opportunities to expand the community in social media, which will expand your connections and allow kind of more opportunities for impact. So that's kind of the intermediate stage. Now we're going to swim in the deep end. This is about expanding the reach of your pulpit, which I think is huge. So that is really, I think, one of the coolest things about social media. We do all this work, because I know it does feel like work, and there's going to be more things to do, but it's an opportunity to take this pulpit and expand it out to places it's never gone before. And so some of the ways we do that are actually so simple. So I kind of laugh when I say we're swimming in the deep end, because some of it's just understanding the terminology and how to use it, and then you're able to do it. It's kind of like accounting. I took like 2 accounting classes, horrible accountant. What I found out was the mathematics in accounting is not difficult. The language is difficult. And that's like social media. The concepts are not difficult. The language is sometimes difficult. And so simply what you want to do is you want to think, how can we share this message out in a conversational way? So finding those things in your message that would make an impact on somebody or have made an impact, and being able to share those things out. One simple way we do that is we use a program called WordSwag. You can download WordSwag, and it's a program that will put words over pictures in a very artistic way. And the cool thing is, I'm not an artist, but this program is built for people that aren't artists, but just want to take a second to scroll through the options, and you can find some engaging ways to share quotes, which sermons a lot of times will have quotes in them that are game changers for people. And so having a platform that you can use to share that quote, and then your people can share that quote out with other people, expands out the pulpit. So here are some simple ways we did it. Create content people can share. This is WordSwag. The top 3 things are kind of us using our tagline and talking about what church is like for an unchurched audience. So, the top image up there, come as you are, doesn't just apply to the bar, is a fun way to engage people outside. The come as you are, why church is not a museum for the saved, but a hospital for the hurting. Things like that, if you can actually back them up in your community of people, if you'll actually take people in like that, are powerful ways to reach out to the unchurched audience. And then we have a big hard rock crowd. We have a very varied crowd, but a lot of them are hard rock because they found us on a hard rock radio station. So that is the old guitar player from Korn. We used his testimony on video one week to lead into the message. And this was just a Bible verse. Come to me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest, which was a church verse that changed his life. And so I thought it was cool because I knew a lot of people knew him, and we shared that out as a way of engaging people in what we were going to talk about. Hadn't yet talked about, but going to talk about. And these are just examples of how you, the average person, can actually sit down in the pew, give them permission to just take a picture and be able to share one of those quotable moments from the message. This is our vicar, Seth, current vicar. He had this just great line, because I always tell you, when you're preaching, if you can't tweet it, you can't preach it. So we always have to have a goal that's simple and clear that gets shared throughout the message at some point. And this was his. You are perfectly positioned for powerful impact. I stole it today. Yeah, this was a fun one. But we shared that out, and a lot of other people said, oh man, that's really encouraging. So they shared it out with their friends. This was with me and my mentor at a conference. As strong as you might be, you're stronger if you are supported around selves. I can't read it that well because it's a little blurry up there. But it was a cool way to throw it out. This is Hugh Halter sharing, anytime you build your life around the rhythms of Jesus, kingdom impact will happen. It's a way of sharing things beyond just the moment of the pulpit And if you create some of those things, your people have options when you share them on your page to share them out to their friends. So you make it easier. Encourage people on a Sunday morning to check in. What check-in means is they share with people, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram. Facebook check-in is the popular term. They can tell people where they are. So you can register your church on Facebook, the location it's in, and when people click check-in, it'll pull up a list of locations. We're in the middle of a mall. So a lot of locations pop up, but the point Knox, whenever you're in the movie theater, pops up, which is cool. So I'm hoping some people say they're at a movie and actually end up putting out that they're on the point, at the point. That'd be awesome. But the powerful thing about a check-in, when it's coupled with people tagging the people that are around them, is you begin to see the impact that's happening in your church. This is Michelle. Michelle met us at Tattoo Convention. I think it was the second or the third tattoo convention we went to. And she said, well, that's cool. So she stepped back into church. She'd been disconnected from church for a lot of years. She starts hearing the gospel because the number one thing to do as a preacher, period, but definitely a Lutheran preacher, is to always make sure you share the gospel. So she starts hearing the gospel. It starts changing her life. Listen, she doesn't come from a Lutheran background. Things like sacraments are very new to her. And she was just blown away this last Sunday that she observed how regularly we do communion. And then where we share about communion, I like to take a moment to just talk about what communion is before we step into words of institution. And we were talking this week about how it's that strengthening, how in the midst of a chaotic world where you open the news and there's all kinds of things that are, pulling away from suffering, how God actually uses the suffering of Christ to bless our life. And so we got to share that. And she takes a picture and she starts talking about how much she loves communion and how we do it regularly, and it fills her life. And this is going out to all her friends and all my friends and Seth's friends and Trey's friends and Emily's friends and everybody else she tagged in that post, including our church. So people begin to see the impact that's happening right there in your pew in a conversational way. So encourage people to check in. This is a side point, wasn't planning on it, but people have a phone. They will engage with their phone during church. You can fight it like you would fight a child who has a toy that wants the toy, or you can show them how to use the toy for gospel impact. When you say things like check in, share a point that sticks out to you, you're teaching people how they can use the toy for gospel impact. Something else you can do is a lot like what we did with the conference, which is develop a service hashtag. So we have a hashtag. I just said, let's make the hashtag the Point Knox. So people share out the Point Knox hashtag during service if they've been impacted by something, and then that can get cataloged. We can look at it later and share some of those stories with our staff, with other people. But really, they're sharing it with their friends. People could search the hashtag. So create a hashtag for your church. The other big thing you can do is use social media to be social and to share life stories. This was not my idea. Our intern, Emily, comes up with some brilliant ideas. She always surprises me with good ideas, and I like that. And we were doing a series called Identity through the book of Ephesians. And she said, well, what if we go on our Instagram page, because our Instagram page was still young at this point, and she says, what if we just start using Instagram to share out people's life stories? So she would go out once a week. She would take a picture of somebody in our church, and she would, in the message spot there, because you've got more room on Instagram, she would share a little bit about that person and what that person does. So it was really cool, I'm sure. Do you guys know what these two people have in common? They're both hairstylists. Yeah, he's bald. I love that. When I found out he was in hair school, I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, man, love cutting hair. But it's cool because your people start to get to know each other in the pews. And this is a benefit when you're in a small church or when you're in a big church. Getting to know the people around you, and then they get to share that they go to your church, which is a powerful thing. A really cool thing to do is leverage social media with a social media event. Something we do around Christmas time to really, because we know people are, I'm going to give a little just background for this first so you're not too shocked. But around Christmas, we know people are looking for a place to go to church. December and Easter, people, because it's still cultural. And so we want to create an event that's fun, that reminds people our church is there, and they should definitely come try it out. So we created an event about 2 years ago called the Ugly Christmas Sweater Sunday. An Ugly Christmas Sweater Sunday is an event where one of our guys, who happens to look a lot like Santa Claus, dresses in the Santa Claus suit, only cost me $50. I figured it was a good investment because we would use it for a few years. And our people come and they sit down in their ugliest Christmas sweaters and they take pictures with them. And you notice in the pictures, we've got the hashtag, we've got the website URL. We've actually stepped it up a notch this year, and we just embedded those right onto the pictures through a simple program. And then in order to win the contest, they share out their picture to their friends, and the person with the most shares and likes wins the contest. Now, what's the contest? Do you guys remember the movie Christmas Story? The Fragile box? Some very talented guys at our church that built the Fragile box. And so it sits up front for the entire December season, and nobody knows what's inside. And so the winner of the social media event gets to come up during service, and they get to open the box and find what's inside. A really cheeky event, but a great way to connect people to church. And it's just fun what happens. You never know, like our year one winner, what image will win. And, you know, that image was shared out well over 100 times, liked over 100 times, and it's just this hilarious image that just embodies Christmas. But the funny thing is, you're like, man, that sounds really cheesy, and it sounds like it would take away from service, but the reality is the event is there bringing people in, allowing them to have some fun community time together, and it's all built around a really serious message series where we really dive into how the nativity applies to our life today and the great gift that God's given us. And so if you're sitting there in an ugly sweater, that message is going to hit you. If you're not in an ugly sweater, it's going to hit you. So we did the ugly sweater event. The other thing you need to do, we mentioned it earlier, post from your community events. Let people know when you're out there doing things because, one, they'll get to see what you're passionate about as a church. And that, the love of Christ is something that's tangible and it goes out. And we're in a highly visual culture where people need to be able to see that happen, especially when so many negative things go out on Facebook. It's so cool to get to see a positive thing like this go out. Plus, too, we hard target men in our church, 24 to 34, unapologetic about it because that's the group that's most out of church. So I like to reach out to the hardest to reach group. And when I'm hard targeting a guy, and all these guys get to see kind of like your guys, sorry, Christy, but your guys engaging with a church event, they start to say things like, well, hey, if they're going to this church, maybe I could go to this church. In fact, that's Tommy on the far end story. His friend Shane was going to church. Tommy was out of church. His wife was praying for him for years upon years to get in church. And he found out Shane was going to church, and he said, well, if the point's a church that Shane could go to, surely I could show up. And his life radically changed. I think at that tattoo event, you see his arm, how it's got the cover? Right at the point where I was saying, hey, great event, I don't even think anybody got tattooed, I see Tommy in a chair getting the biggest ixus I've ever seen in my life right there on his arm. So it's really cool what can happen. The final thing I'll tell you is this. Live stream, post old messages, even if you're not going to live stream them, figure out what capability you have. If audio is your capability, there are great platforms out there like SoundCloud that you can engage and use to repost on things like Facebook. Engage with the video. If you have video, here's the trick with video. Video quality is actually not as important as audio quality. So if you have really strong audio quality but poor video quality, that's okay. If you have really good video quality but poor audio quality, you need to address the audio quality because people won't engage with that as long. But being able to put this up there allows you to extend the life of the message. And I didn't realize just the real impact of that until it was like 5 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. And I was used to waking up really early so I could go through my message. And for some reason, I was procrastinating. I never do this. But I checked my email. And I had an email that came in at like 4:30. And I'm like, okay, I'm interested. So I clicked on the email. And it was an email from a guy that had heard our ads on the radio station. And he could not sleep that night. And he was trying to think of what our tag was. So he said, okay, The Point Knox. It was easy to find. So he found he found the mobile app, downloaded the mobile app, and he started listening to a Father's Day message we had done 2 weeks earlier. And his comment to me in the email, I will never forget. He said, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I got to have church. I mean, can you imagine the person that can't sleep? There's a reason you can't sleep. And to be engaged with the gospel in a moment of desperate need, to be able to say, I had church that early in the morning. And for me, it didn't add to my workload. It didn't take away from my sermon preparation for that week for all the people that were showing up in person. But it just allowed the gospel to be expanded out that much longer. So that's why that piece is just so important to me. And the last piece I would say is this. Social media is robust. What I recommend is get social media coaching. Think Digital is an incredible place to find coaching. And we do coaching for a lot of different things. And the cool thing about the advent of the digital age is that there is so much quality coaching online that really helps fill in some of the gaps of ministry or some of the issues you jump into. I'm right now doing financial coaching through Giving Rocket, which has been incredible. I got a BOGO deal, buy one, get one, and they actually threw in Preaching Rocket. So with the guys that are at our church and I'm training up as preachers, we do Preaching Rocket together. So they can get some of the quality teaching and coaching and preaching, and then I can kind of fill out some of the other areas with them. But this is a great thing for social. This will cost you, I just heard it went up to like $40 a month, $40 a month, and they're going to dive into the deep waters. The cool thing is, this was started by Justin Wise, who was a seminary-trained pastor in the Lutheran Church, ELCA. But incredible thing is working at a huge church, and all of a sudden the pastor's like, I think we need to do this Facebook thing. So he started Facebook, and right when he graduated seminary, he's like, I don't think I need to be a pastor. I think I need to start a company that helps people engage social media. So he told his wife, hey, with all this student debt, let's start a company. And they started the Think Digital company. It's incredible, but they have churches in mind with this, and they do intense social media coaching for churches that you can actually use. It's easy to access. It's got a lot of great resources, like a whole library of kind of pre-written tweets that you can use and remold for your church. The resources alone are helpful, but the coaching has been invaluable. I'll use some of the coaching, but I actually took the coaching and I gave it over to our new DCE, and so one of her requirements is she does her social media coaching, she listens to her weekly call, and then she's actually the one that's now leading our social media team. This is what I'll tell you about social media. Social media is something that just starts somewhere. There's a philosophy in life that really helps, which is the crawl, walk, and run method. When it comes to social, just start crawling. When we started social media, I was the only one doing it in our church. And then I started walking, and I started engaging some other people with me in social media, and then making that engagement more intentional. So that allowed me to step out of it a little more and spend less time on it. And then when we got the next platform done, finally I got a team that has a team leader. So honestly, I interact with our Facebook page a couple times a week, and it's not really to post anything. It's more to kind of see what's up there and enjoy it and like it myself. But I've been able to step out of that by taking the time to crawl in it, walk in it, and then set other people free to run with it.